Welcome back. Here's where you left off. Spoilers ahead for Project Hail Mary, both the book and the movie. So Leonard, we have talked many times on this podcast about our beloved for Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary book and how much we really value the story and how it's been put out there in the world. And they have made a movie about it. And yesterday, we went to see it together, to sit down to review it. And oh boy, do we have a lot to say about this. What are your initial reactions after seeing the movie there?
It's kind of interesting how you actually started about how we have tons of comments in this one. And after the movie, okay, this little synopsis. After the movie, we literally did not speak until we actually had dinner, right? Because we watched it late. And I'm going to say it right now. I like the movie. I really, really do like the movie. It's a good homage to the source material, right? It was, I enjoy watching it. They added a couple of scenes there because it's very hard to adapt a book to a movie. It's always been hard. There's sacrifice needs to be made. There's additions have to be made to this, because you can't just. It's easier to describe something in the book, but you bring something in the book into a visual medium, so you have to add new things, or you have to describe. You have to convey emotion through visualization, right? And in my opinion, this is my humble opinion. You know, I'm very humble. I really, really liked the movie and how it adapted how it took the source material and tried to pay homage to it, but at the same time to add things that requires, because you cannot put words into visualization and they have to make something up, right? And we always say that books going into movies, just you lose something, you add something. There's always a mixed bag, right? And we can give you one particular example later on, but I liked it. I really, really liked how it got adopted. How about you?
It's interesting because, well, I mean, you know, it's not that it's funny that it's not as if you and I haven't spoken about this yesterday. But the interesting thing is, after reflection time and so forth, when I'm sitting back, I didn't hate it. I as you said, I think it was a proper homage to the book. I compared it to the other movie, The Martian, where Andy Weir's book was adapted to movie, and I felt that was, after reading the book and watching the movie, was extremely well suited to those two things. Now this, I didn't object to. I didn't think it was a bad movie. I do have my problems with the movie, but more about the tone and maybe some of the stuff, which is really what we talked mostly about afterwards. But I have specific gripes, not about the adaptation though. I think that the main plot points were there. The ones that I was concerned that they wouldn't include, they did, and I was very thankful of that. So for somebody who hasn't read the book, this would be a great movie. You know, for somebody that has read the book, I feel as if you will always lean towards the book. Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah, 100%. This is why it's always been a very contentious topic to talk about regarding what would you read first, or what would you do first? Read the book, then watch the movie, or watch the movie then read the book. That's always been a very, very thing that always people talk about.
It's interesting because in almost every single instance I have experienced, I would always say read the book first. In almost every experience that I've had, that's almost universal. It's not exact, but it's very close to saying that always read the book first. And the reason is that the writer's intent, and the reason that somebody decided that they wanted to adapt this to a movie is because the book was so good. That's generally the rule of thumb here, right? And so when we're talking about what did they adapt, what did they do it, you know, we have the main characters, Grace, Rocky, and Strand, you know, who are sort of the main characters in the plot in the movie. And they did honor every single one of those characters. Rocky was well done. The voicing was well done. I enjoyed that. They did as you said, for the purposes of the movie, change things. Like a very glaring thing that I'll point out here is the scene where Rocky escapes his enclosure to save Grace. And in the book, that's a very dangerous moment where Grace has to actually save Rocky instead of the other way around, where they both sort of save each other. And in the movie, they didn't have the time to explore that. They just had to sort of have Rocky save Grace and then get himself back in his closure and just be injured and Grace not know what's going on. And to me, that was a completely reasonable movie adaptation of it. In fact, out of everything that happened in the movie, I think that was the most reasonable thing I gave to their adaptation of it. We also had a famous scene in the movie, and you and I had an extensive conversation about this, about the karaoke scene in the movie that was not in the book. And you talked extensively about how you felt that it was absolutely necessary to make the humanity of these group of people. And I said that it was probably the scene that was spent enough time on that they didn't have to spend that much time, and it could have been used in other ways in the movie to express character development.
You're literally triggering our conversation from last night.
I am.
Okay.
Well, that's what. Hey, that's why everybody came here to listen to, dude.
I know, right? So, okay, let's talk about the scene here because, again, this is a big spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie yet. In the book itself, you're right. The karaoke scene was not in the book, right? Because, again, like I said before, the book provided the emotional requirements to give the reader how it feels and what the burden that this astronauts and this crew and the people who work in this project had to endure, right? And putting that in a movie, the movie is going to add in another 2 more hours of film, right? And this scene itself, in my opinion, provided that the burden of releasing that burden for about just an hour, right? If you ending up having a scene that's saying that, okay, all the serious work constantly, and there's one moment in time that everyone can just relax, that gives the audience the feel of like, it's not about just work now. It's not about carrying the world in your shoulder, trying to save it. Now they can just relax for 1 hour in their life to say, I just need a break. That's why the scene is there. And I was telling you that when what's her name came up and started singing, the song is called "Sing of the Time" by Harry Styles, and the way she sang it just gave this emotional depth to the whole scene. Because I can really admit it that when that song came out, I teared up because I felt in that moment in time, I felt the weight. All this weight, all this responsibility on their shoulder disappeared for that 30 seconds moment. That I just need to relax and rest. And that karaoke scene was that break to show the audience that they're only human. They can do whatever this is the best. This is what the world can provide, and this is the best they can do. And this is the time for them to just like take a deep breath.
You really went really deep into this, buddy.
It is. It's a beautiful scene.
No. My objection to the scene wasn't the content of the scene. It was, funny enough, one of the more lengthy scenes in the movie, and out of a movie that was 2 hours and like 40 minutes long, I felt like it could have been used differently. And I'm going to bring up a different point here. I actually don't object to the scene as much. We just had a philosophical conversation whether it should have been in or shouldn't have been in. I didn't say it didn't work in the movie. I just said I felt like the time could have been used differently. One of my major objections to it was the portrayal of Grace in the movie. And Grace in the book is a very thoughtful, very intelligent. He is a very quirky guy that is kind of funny. But in the movie, we just push through it a lot. And not that we have a ton of time, of course, in the movie to explore all the science and so forth. But I felt like it really washed out the character of Grace a bit. Rocky was done great. I don't think anybody would deny that. He was honored and done well in the book. And even Strat, she was done really good in played very well. But Grace was the thing that I felt like the tone they took was a little too, I'll use the word comedic. Does that make sense to you?
It makes sense. Like, I understand what you're saying. I have no problems with what your comments are, but the problem I have is not about Grace and how he was on screen. Because you're right. Because in the book itself, he was very. You have to look at the perspective of. Let's just look at the character Grace. In the book, he was assigned. He was a PhD for particle physics. He wrote a paper regarding I think having. You don't need
it was
H2O
an advanced
to
paperwork.
run,
It was an advanced paper, and he basically got shunned out of academia and ran to a high school. That's essentially what happened.
It's more deeper than that. You're just literally summarize things that exactly what happened in the movie. So you have to look at the perspective what's the difference between the book and the movie regarding Grace, the character. If you really want
to get in there, I'll go there, buddy. Because
we'll go there. Hold on. Because at the end of the day, he wrote a paper that's very opposed by his colleagues. His career literally vanished. So he went back. Then he started teaching grade school science, right? And in the book and even the movie, it shows who he is. He's very passionate about teaching his students, and he's using comedy. He's using whatever it takes to teach those kids science. You can see that in the book. You can see this in the movies, right? And if in the book itself, he has a comedic timing. He is very silly. He's very serious in the same time. He's a very smart person. In the movie,
which is
you can still see the same thing. In the movie,
I disagree with that.
Hold on, let me finish my point here.
I disagree with that.
Let me finish my point here. You can still see the same thing. The only difference between the book and the movie is the length. Because in the book itself, it was literally a quarter of the book is about him figuring what he needs to do. In the movie, it was only 10 minutes long. This is the difference. This is the difference. You cannot compress all that in his character in a page of a book into a.
I am not disagreeing with the fact that you can't. But what I'm saying to you is, they could have most of the stuff that they covered in the. It's like they took the scientific content of the book and they threw it in as an afterthought into the movie. Whereas in the movie, you could skip over a number of the aspects of the scientific stuff, but in order to relay the character's proper being, which was my concern from the beginning about him being cast in the role, is that the seriousness of Grace wasn't really portrayed. His intelligence was mentioned, but it wasn't really displayed. And I think that was the part that did the character the disservice. Not necessarily that he acted it badly, because he acted it the way he was directed to. You know, I never fault actors. You know, that's the way they are. That's who they are as actors. That's fine. But in the writing of it, I said, you know, you could take a little time over here instead of, I think they added, there was a scene where they tried to make Grace and Rocky buddy, but everything was so rushed that it didn't. The pacing of the movie to me was off. It was just too snap, and that's a part where is a disservice to the character of Grace, is what I felt.
See, here's the thing though. You're looking at a perspective of like you're looking at it in the window of like you read the book, okay? You remember the book is a freaking long book. You're trying to compress all that. Okay, let's use this scene in the movie. That you made a comment last night. You made a very good comment last night that the relationship between Rocky and Grace was more defined, more. It's a lot more conversation between those two characters in the book, and I agree with you 100%. No issues there. In the movie itself, they cannot have two characters yapping for an hour discussing science. You're looking at perspective that you're trying to adapt a book into a movie that it's never going to happen. And the scene that they had in the movie when they went to that room that with all the display to show Earth and all that stuff and fireworks and all that stuff, them being in that scene literally summarized their relationship in the book. That's why I see it.
I see your point. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think that was the attempt, as you said, to summarize it, but the summarization of it is simply more difficult. I mean, to be fair, if we were to cut out Strat's entire plot line about her sort of betraying him and so forth, which I would have been upset about, that would have saved them a lot of time in the movie because they spend a lot of time with flashbacks to show how we got there. But at the same time, there were moments that the character there, it didn't really, as you said, that karaoke scene showed her being human and so forth. But in the book, when she says to Grace, you know, you're going to go off and do this, but they're going to put me in jail for doing everything I've done because my goal was to save humanity, not to save myself. That was her sacrifice. And I don't think they really found that in. I think they switched it out for the karaoke scene. Do you see my point?
Okay, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. That particular part of the book was very, very, very strong because it tells the reader that, like you said, my sacrifice is not me going back home. My sacrifice, I did something criminal. Right. And remember, at the book itself, she already stated at the beginning that I'm in charge. I command everyone. Right. And for her theoretically, well, not theoretically, literally kidnap Grace and put her in a spaceship, go all the way to Tel Ceti and literally put him to death. Right, and that's the criminal part that we're talking about.
It means that her as a person made her own personal sacrifices, but it also means that in her own way, she did the thing that nobody else would want to do.
Yes.
But she has to live with that, and so in a way, Grace and her are opposites, in a sense, right? Where she's willing to do whatever is necessary to save humanity, where Grace is scared to rise to that challenge, but she forces him into that position, and he does rise to the challenge, but in the end, she's the one that sort of pays that consequence, going to jail, whatever we want to say to it, right? Now, in the movie, they don't sort of do that, and they don't explicitly say she goes to jail in the book, but it's very implied by her statements, understanding like the world will let me do this only to the point where you launch, and after that, I'm done.
Yes.
I really enjoyed the symbolism between those two dynamics, and I didn't feel that it was completely expressed in the movie. I mean, there was a good attempt. Don't get me wrong. I'm not arguing that. I just felt like I wanted her to get a little more props than she got in the movie.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Okay. Look at this perspective. In the movie itself, this is just the movie. We're not talking about the book here. We're talking about the movie itself. You'll have to look at the perspective of the people who never read the book. Their relationship, okay, Strauss and Grace, they had a relationship of like, they even showed it several times in the movie. That remember when she was standing outside the ship, like on top of the whatever, like one of the crow's nests or whatever, he went up and said, "Hey, permission to come aboard." And she's already in the ship, right? Their conversation, even just before the explosion, they had this conversation. They always, when they talk to each other, they always talk to each other as a very respectful, very, very, very friendly. They feel like you're just talking to a buddy. Right, and
actually, you know what? I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah,
I'm going to agree with you. Your point is right. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you see the contrast between when the two astronauts died, right? The two scientists. Grace walked into her office and said, "Yeah, I'm sending you up there." Grace literally freaked out. I was like, "How can you do this to me?" I thought in his eyes, he's like, "We were supposed to be buddies here. So now you're going to sacrifice me to go there? I'm not even equipped to do this." Right? For him running out from the room and she stood up and called. It's like, yeah, he's running. That's the betrayal that you're looking at.
I agree. Actually,
Right?
I felt like, and again, I go back to sort of like the actual wording that was done in the book.
Yeah,
that wasn't
again,
translated well into the
in my
into the
opinion,
movie.
in my opinion, it changed I agree. It changed that particular scene. It changed the dynamic. It doesn't have to be saying that my sacrifice is going to jail. The sacrifice is there. I'm sacrificing our friendship for you to do this job.
I get your point then, and that maybe the writer felt like that was an easier thing for the audience to absorb in the
because it's the
movie
medium. It's literally it's a book versus movie. They cannot do the movie line by line in the book. And they had to sacrifice a few things, and the way they did it, in my opinion, was the right thing. I don't care if it would be nice to be honest with you, it would be nice to have that line there because it tells you the sacrifice that she has to make. But they made it in a way that her sacrifice is losing this valuable this friendship that they had together. It's gone now.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, like, I'm gonna give you another example here, and I know we keep on comparing book to movie here. But there are things they did good between Adapt. And one of the scenes was when they were playing with the tape measure. I thought that was well done because in the book, that was a long sort of exploration between the two of them. And their meeting for the first time was relatively well done for compressing that what was immensely a number of chapters in the book into a few minutes, which I thought was well done. Did you think similarly?
I agree. I love that scene because it shows the the playfulness of both characters, and again, we're going back to the same point before that the relationship between them was summarized very well, right? And the other one as well too when the tape measure is going in and when they start talking, they're trying to learn each other's language. Rocky's race is actually a bit more advanced, right? Way more advanced than humans. And Grace had to develop a way to learn his language, right? And that scene, the book itself and the scene in the movie was bang on. I really, really enjoyed it. Right, and
I will say this though,
brilliant.
that the way that they did it in the book felt more earned, but to be fair, it would be very hard to translate that into the movie. In the book, there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of we have to do this together. Where in the movie, obviously for time, they basically left it all on kind of Grace's shoulders to solve everything. See what I'm saying? Whereas in the book, there was a lot of give it back and forth. Although they did have Rocky in the movie figure out the bacterial thing on the planet and so forth to kill them. So that was a good scene. Let me ask you though, how did you feel about the portrayal of Rocky in the movie? Like the physical creature they developed based on what we read in the book. How did you think that they adapted that? Do you think it was good?
That's actually a good question. I had a discussion with the wifey on our way home after last night, and the book itself gives you enough information to use your imagination to describe Rocky, right? And the keywords were he has to be almost like a spider-like, nothing big, nothing small, and those kind of things. And the book itself described him very well, and they adapted the description in the book into the movie itself very, in my opinion, very well as well, because it's great to see. I do like it. I really like how they describe it. It worked really well.
I had no objection. Yeah, I had no objection. I think they did it very well. I don't think it. I think it was animatronic. I don't necessarily think it was CGI.
It's CGI.
I think it
was
was
CGI.
You think so? Okay.
Oh yeah, it's CGI.
But it was well done. It was good CGI done, and the way that the conversation that Rocky did, they honored it from the book. I don't think necessarily they explained why he does things in certain ways. Like in the book, when he says bad, 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 or amazing, 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 is because of something that Grace says to him. And as far as I could tell in the movie, that connection wasn't made. He just you just made him. They just said like that's how he speaks, kind of thing in the movie.
Yeah.
Versus there's a reason he talks like that by reinforcing that. And in the book, it was kind of a fun way to do it. So I am nitpicking here. I admit that, but it's little tiny things that it would have been nice if they just give that little connective tissue for the 10 seconds in the movie that it would have taken to explain it. Another example is the watch you sleep kind of thing. Even though they did explain it, I felt it was a little rushed, but I get it. They did explain it, but I was like, it didn't have as much meaningful impact as it did in the book, I think.
You're describing what you read in the book to the movie. It's two different mediums.
I'm nitpicking. I'm
I know.
nitpicking.
I understand you're nitpicking, and I agree with you because the conversation regarding why he said three things at a time in the book itself, it's a brilliant way. It is fantastic because it shows the conversation between Grace and Rocky, right? And the mannerism that Rocky does is missing from the movie because again they have to cut things out, and that's fine because here's an amazing example in The Martian. In the book itself, there's a scene that when the two astronauts were hooking up in the ship, there's a scene about the other guy sleeping in the airlock and all that stuff, and they start switching, and the commander say, hey, you just sleep you guys are sleeping together, but we might as well just share in the same room, right? They cut that out in the movie. But they did record it. They did film that scene, but they cut it out because it got too long. And that scene in the book and the scene was perfectly done, right? Unfortunately, they have to cut it. And the same thing in this movie. They probably shot it and they caught it. They chopped it because it's getting too long, right? And too bad though, because that conversation between Rocky and Grace was like the best thing ever. It was the most funniest thing ever in the book, right? And instead of like bump fist me, it's just fist me, right? Those kind of things that it's hard to translate things in writing and going to film because if you don't have the context, it's not going to work out in the movie, right? And cutting it that way, I forgive them. I'm disappointed, but I understand why, right? I think that the best way to describe if you're adapting a book into a movie, you have to ask yourself like, why are they cutting it? Oh, I understand why, right? So, too bad. Again, I'm with you. I'm a little annoyed that it's not there, but I understand.
Like I said, we're nitpicking at this point. I'm nitpicking to the point of saying, like, was it a good movie? Yeah. Was it perfect? No. I can't go that high.
Okay, I have an issue with that comment though. I have a massive issue with that comment. You cannot have a proper argument. It's like, oh, a movie cannot be amazing because they didn't follow the source material.
Actually, I'm actually saying to you that my rating for the movie is high because I'm taking that into consideration. Because of where I think that my own bias comes in with that. I think so. So for me, for me doing that, I'll give it an 8 out of 10 for the movie scoring, right? We gave the book like a 9 out of 10. We were like super happy with the book, right? I think that if I put aside my objections to it and just look at it as a movie, it becomes more to me it changes the dynamic. Like I look at Grace in the movie as a bumbling scientist who bumbled into solving something, right? Versus in the book, it's an intelligent guy placed into a situation where he intelligently sort of resolves it, right? Because his intelligence is what ultimately leads to that brilliance. But in the movie, they leaned really heavy on the comedy.
I disagree with that comment. I 100% disagree with that comment. I'll tell you why after the comment.
No, it's okay. So my rating on the movie would be 8 out of 10. You go ahead.
Okay, so when you said the movie itself, that he plays more bumbly fool, brilliant guy, and you mentioned as well too that he bumbled himself to figure out the issue, and I totally disagree on that one. Disagree 120%. Okay, there's a reason why. He couldn't figure if he's just bumbling and just pretending he's a scientist because he teaches grade school. He didn't figure out how those things actually works and how they actually move.
Bumbling was wrong.
between the two the sun or the sun fake sun versus to the Jupiter. He figured that out himself, right? And the comment you have regarding the bumbling fool in the movie compared to that, I totally disagree on that one, because without him figuring that out, they will not have a mission. Period. Right?
I think that bumbling is a difference between the disconnect between the character and the other. And I mean, we're talking about a movie that they're trying to adapt here. I mean, I'm being particular about it. My objection to the movie is more about the portrayal of the character. But if I was to look at it just by the movie itself, I would look at it as a guy who was a teacher who went onto the ship, and he's trying to figure some things out. But in the
book,
in the context of the movie, I would not have been as sold on him figuring things out if I didn't know the book. Does that make sense?
Yes, but again, I disagree with you, because if you put yourself out, pretend you never read the book, right?
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah,
if I didn't read the book and I just watched the movie on its own, I would not have been as forgiving to the character. To me, it was, I mean, to be fair, it was more about the filmmakers pushing things forward very quickly. And I had my main objection to the movie is the pacing of the movie. That is my primary objection to the movie, is the pacing. I didn't care for the pacing of the movie at all.
Okay, if you're talking about
admittedly, it's a long movie.
If you're talking about the pacing of the book here, the pacing of the movie, this movie is going to be a 6-hour long movie. Period. It's going to be a frigging long movie. If you look at the pacing of the movie itself.
We have the Justice League. Come on, give me a break. You have
a Justice League with how many comics books did they have in Justice League? Remember, they made a decision.
I'm just saying
to make a
Joss
friggin'
Whedon's Justice
4-hour-long movie.
Joss Whedon's Justice League remaster or remade or whatever
4 hours
is better
long
than the other. But it's better than the other thing that was released.
Yeah, I understand that. But they shot all that for 4. They purposely made sure they shot that in 4 hours. Longer than 4 hours. Right? They made a decision to make a 2.5 hour long movie. That's their time. If you want this longer, then there's going to be 2 parts. Okay.
I want to know if there's a director's cut, man. I really do.
So either way, there's one thing we didn't discuss, but I'm going to give you my rating because it's very important for me to. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10 because it was a great adaptation of the book. 2, I have gripes regarding some key issue, but I understand, right? I reviewed this. I going into this movie, I was like, we had this discussion going into this movie. The first thing out of our mouths is they better not f this one up. That was literally our conversation going into this movie. They better not screw this one up, right? Going into this movie, I already told the wife that. They better not screw this up. I'm literally like, she had to tell me to watch the movie before you make any comments. So before going to this movie, I did not watch any of the trailers, none, because I saw the first trailer came out and Rocky's hand came out. The first thing out of my mind is like, they just ruined the whole movie. Right in that particular scene, they ruined this movie because they literally told everyone what's up. Right.
It's funny because we actually haven't talked about this because I mean, and we give it to the filmmakers because they want to sell movie tickets. And so the reveal of Rocky in the book was a huge moment.
It was a big moment. And they showed it. They showed it in the trailer. I was like, I flipped the table and gave it a finger and I was like, you dick.
But it's funny. It's the one thing that I gave them a free pass on for the movie because
I did not.
You need to engage people to come to the movie, and I'm not happy about it, but I understand why they did it. And it's funny that's the thing that you and I disagree on.
Like it's like I understand showing Rocky's ship, but if you show Rocky's hand, that's where I disagree upon. This is why I get annoyed with this whole thing.
Oh yeah, I understand your point.
That's why going to this, I was a little upset already, right? And after watching the movie, I gave it a 9 out of 10 because it was a great adaptation in the movie of a source material. I don't care. They had to they had to sacrifice a lot of things to tell the story in a different medium. Okay, so that's how I looked at it. So I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. Definitely read the book before watching the movie. Okay. One last thing that I do want to discuss with you before we close this: the ending of the movie. Without going too much depth into it, I was very happy the ending in the movie matches the book.
It was close. I mean, we could gripe about it
Again,
a little bit here and there.
Again, book versus movie. You can't say close.
We're talking about, like, do we need to show how far Rocky's people went to accommodate Grace? It would have been nice to show that an entire society made an effort to accommodate him, to have him live out the rest of his life. Then I mean, to be fair,
Derek, they did. They did.
No, I'm not objecting to that. What I'm saying to you is that you don't really get that sense in the movie. All you really get a sense of is that he's on a beach in the movie, right? And doing that. And the other thing that they sort of change up is that the aliens and him are in the same environment now, which I didn't quite understand that in the movie.
Derek, like, I'm cringing right now. They accommodate him so much. They gave him a beach. They're changing the temperature of the water.
No. What I mean to you is that in the movie, I mean, we're splitting hairs here, everyone. But in the book, they had to build him his own environment because he can't live on their environment.
Yes.
But they didn't really cover that in the movie for just logistics, and that's fine. Like in the book, they live on a much heavier planet, and they're much more hardy than he is, and it would kill him instantly and all that, the environment. And so they build him his own dome, and then that's where he lives. And, having the kids there for the aliens is great. I'm not objecting to the ending of it at all.
It's literally in the book that when he started teaching Rocky's the kids, that was in the book. That was literally in the book.
You. And you and I agree that we loved that ending. You and I basically said, if they don't put that in the movie, we are going to trash it. So we are in agreement that is good that it was there. And I am not objecting. You're just very sensitive right now. I am not objecting.
Screw you, hippie.
I don't have any problem in how they ended the movie. It's fine. I mean, it really is. I mean, there's slight little differences, but it's really slight, I'm nitpicking about it, but there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, if anything they did, it was probably the close to the book as they got. Right? They wanted to show him being happy and so forth and so on, right? They just had to, for movie purposes, walk over a couple of things that were in the book that they didn't want to have to deal with in the movie, which is fine. That's not a problem with me. But I agree. The movie. So I mean, in the book, we had the main points that were big points in the book, where we find out about Rocky, where Strat betrays him, where he makes the decision to go back and save Rocky, and when he's on the planet with them teaching the kids. Those are like the main hit points in the book. And they hit them all in the movie. I'm happy with it. You know what I mean? Like they hit those main points, and I'm happy about it. And that's why I gave it 8 out of 10. My objection was more about pacing and Grace's, portrayal from that perspective is where I'm knocking it a little more than you, but that's where I am. So I'm at 8 out of 10.
Mine's 9 out of 10. It was a great adaptation of the book. The pacing is fine because it's a movie compared to a book, and Grace's personality in the movie is fine to summarize it. We'll end it that way.
And what we will say is we recommend you guys go see the movie and definitely read the book. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share a review. We love to hear from you. Send us an email at yourbookmarksinfo@gmail.com. Join us again right here where you left off.